Hi there. Oh, let's get my video. There we go. Welcome. Week 3. Yes, we made it halfway. I don't know about you, but it just seems like the first 2 weeks are like this mad dash. And I know the second 2 weeks are going to be the same, but it just kind of feels like I want to take a moment and like pause and say, okay, what worked? What didn't? I think sometimes we skip over that important step to pause and kind of assess like, okay, where are we at? What do we need to fix? And what can we do better in the second half of any course, of course, but especially a math class. So I think we'll keep that in mind today as we go through our session. I want to bring you good examples for the learning objectives this week. I want to also give you some encouragement, right? We've got 2 more weeks. Don't lose heart. Don't get tired and give up, right? Keep pressing on, right? Just keep showing up every day. If I could show you my journal for this week, last week, it was so good. I saw a friend's social media post and she referenced a quote that just said, do the next right thing. So I wrote it all in my journal. Mind you, my kids came in and saw my journal like, oh, did you watch Frozen today? And I was like, what? I said, oh, that's the quote in Frozen 2. Just do the next right thing. So when you look at your to-do list for this week, when you look at everything that you need to do, don't get overwhelmed. Just do the next right thing. Just do the next thing. And so that's what I'm holding to this week, that we will do just the next right thing. And that it will get us, if we'll keep doing that, we will get to the end of this class. And we will do so and have it behind us. And I know many of you have expressed how the math class is not necessarily your favorite. It's not necessarily something you were looking forward to, but we're halfway and we're going to see this finished. That being said, I'm going to jump on the week 2 grading because I want you to have some feedback on those. I love that some of you are already correcting. Like you're using the feedback, you're making the corrections and you're resubmitting. That is so amazing because that's that full circle learning we talked about, right? Where we get the instruction, we try it on our own, we get the feedback, and then we go back and check and redo and make sure that we learn and we understand deeply. So that is so encouraging, and I will get that caught up for you on the grading because I want you to see that difference that it makes. But I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for those of you who embrace the feedback and the corrections. So without further ado, let's get into week 3, friends. I'm on second cup of coffee this morning already, so forgive me, but we are surviving, right? We're just going to show up and do the next right thing. So let me mute my video because I do want to make sure we have a good quality stream. This week, week 3, is all about order of operations. You may be going, wait a minute. Didn't we do order of operations in week 1? And you would be correct. We did order of operations in week 1. So it's coming back. And then we're going to talk about graphs as well. Lots of good things. So you're going to see some review items for this week. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with reviewing for a math class because we want to make sure that we understand. And then we're going to show some new things as well. So let's jump in. Week 3 to-do list. You know, I'm all about my lists. And I think I told you in week 1, I am an Enneagram 3, which is an achiever. And if you haven't taken your Enneagram, super fun to do that, by the way, if you want to jump on that. But if you haven't, I'll just tell you, an Enneagram 3 is an achiever. We like checklists. We like all that good stuff. So let's dive into ours for this week. So remember, we talked about these items are consistent each week of our course. We always have 2 discussions. We always have an assignment. We always have an assessment, yada, yada, yada. But what changes are the prompts, right? What changes are the problems in the assignment. but the basic format is the same. So remember, with your discussions, you need an initial post by Wednesday. So you need an initial post by Wednesday. And then you need also in that initial post, make sure you have one citation and reference. That's just going to support your research. And then you need 2 replies to your classmates. And some of you are amazing at this. Like when you go to do a reply, you add so much learning to it. You like bring a whole different perspective that no one has thought of before. And I absolutely love that and appreciate that you are doing that. Now, if replies are not your thing, meaning you struggle with them, I always like to add a little tidbit in mine. So I will say something like, I'll give a good job. And then I'll say something like, well, there was an interesting point someone brought up. Okay. And you can see when I do my replies, that's what I do. And I find that students, it kind of adds to the discussion. And so if you want to borrow that strategy from me, you might as well go ahead. Won't bother me one bit. I want you to have all of those. I want you to have a skill set to be able to do that. So if you need to borrow that from me, you go right ahead. I would love to see you try it out with your replies this week. Let me know if I can help in any way. That's really what I'm here for, is to help with our course items, right? Like not just to deliver the content, although that's what I do, but also to help you kind of see a way that you can accomplish all of these things that are required and finish this class. So let's look then at the other items for week 3. So we have an assignment. Now this one is, there are 5 questions on this one. On this assignment, it's very similar to the week 1 assignment. I'm going to, so many people told me that they enjoyed the week 2 playlist, and I'm going to make a playlist for week 3. That's on the agenda today. So we will get that made and out to you so you can start working on that if you want. I'm anxious to see what you guys come up with. You have some 2 problems in that assignment that you're going to be creating line graphs. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then we have the assessment, which you remember from last week. My word to the wise on this one is take it more than once. Yep, take it more than once. This one you can use multiple attempts to be able to earn the highest grade possible. And I want that for you. And so that's why I always encourage you to take it more than once until you get the highest grade possible. All right, then we have the live lecture quiz. So for the live lecture quiz, remember there are 4 questions on this. And in our live lecture, we give you all of the information you need to answer all 4 of those questions. However, at the beginning of 2021, we were no longer allowed to put the questions and answers on the slide for you. So you're going to have to dig for them a little bit. And I do apologize for that, but that was a change in policy in January. So many have asked about that. Okay, and then you have your daily checkpoints. 4 of these are required each week, and 3 are extra credit. And many of you have said that you set a reminder on your phone to go in and complete those daily checkpoints. It takes you between 5 and 10 minutes to do that. So I would encourage you, if you have not done that, if you have not set your reminder, that that you do that so that you can be ready and then just, you don't miss them or forget or get busy. Lord knows I get busy. And so I always have to I use reminders on my phone, timers on my phone all the time. So I encourage you to do the same. All right. So let's take a look then at the content for this week. Use your to-do list to kind of check off things so that you know where you're at. I know lots of people do planners and things like that. That's kind of how I am, but it will help you to make sure you don't miss anything. So let's look at week 3's objectives. Now, remember in week 1, we had 5 objectives. In week 2, we had 6 learning objectives. And looky here, in week 3, we only have 4 of them. And I know people are like, oh goodness, thank goodness it might not be so hard, but I want to add even a little bit more. Let me put a check by the ones we've already done. See, we've already covered those 3 learning objectives. This guy at the end, that's the only new one we have for this week. Now, so what I'm going to do in this session, I'm going to give you some examples to review for these first 3 learning objectives, because I want to bring them back to memory, okay? So that you can look at them and see how to remember how to do them again, okay? And then of course, this last one, I'm going to go through and explain. I'm also going to give you a few types of ways that you might see those questions being asked. So same operating procedures that we've been using over our course, but I also want to give you lots of good review as well. Okay, so for the first 2 learning objectives, I want you to see that the assessment this week has several different algebraic formulas. And just like we did in the week 2 assignment, we are substituting a value in for one variable to help us find the value for another variable. These are just some of the formulas that you will be looking at and using. If you want to do a screenshot, you're welcome to do that and have those. Or if you're watching the recording, you're definitely welcome to pause and write these down. We will give the formula, you don't have to have them memorized, but sometimes it's nice to know what the letters stand for as well. So I wanted to put those on here and also give you a heads up that it's on the assessment this week. So let's take a look at a formula or a problem that goes with this formula learning objective. Okay, using the formula A equals LW and the formula A equals S to the second, determine which would provide the largest cake. A square cake with sides of 8 inches or a rectangular cake with a cake pan with a length of 7 inches and a width of 5. So I want you to realize in this problem, we actually are doing 2 calculations. I'm going to split them up, okay? The first one we're doing is the square. And the square formula is A equals S to the second, where S stands for the side. So I'm going to substitute in 8 for S. So let me put that in my formula, 8 to the second. I want you to remember that that doesn't mean 8 times 2. Instead, that means 8, write the 8 2 times and then multiply. So that gives me 64, and this would be square inches. Okay, now let's look at the rectangular pan then. In the rectangular pan, we're going to use the other formula, which is LW. And for this one, we're going to put in the length of 7, that's our L, and a width of 5, that's our W. So we'll substitute those, 7 for L and 5 for W, and we get 35 square inches. Okay, so which one produces the biggest cake? That's going to be the square pan. The square pan produces the largest cake, but you can see how we use the formulas make our substitutions to find our area. All right, let's keep on seeing some good examples here. So this time we're going to use the formula D equals RT. When planning a trip across the country, John is planning to drive approximately 3,000 miles. That's our D, our distance. We know that D equals distance. We know that R equals rate, or speed, we can call it. And T, of course, is time. Okay. If he drives an average rate of 60 miles per hour, that's our R. How many hours will it take him? So we start with our formula, D equals RT. And we'll substitute 3,000 for D. And we'll substitute 60 for R. And now we have to solve for T. So we ask ourselves, what's happening to that variable T? It's being multiplied by 60. So we do the opposite of multiplying by 60, which is to divide by 60. And so T equals, and you can do this in your calculator, you'll get 50. I'm checking my division here. Yep, we'll get 50. So it's going to take us 50 hours. That seems like a long time, but I think about 3,000 miles as a long way, a long way. It's almost cross country. Okay, let's look at this example then. Use the formula A equals pi r squared to solve the following. Which would be a bigger slice of pizza? A pizza with a radius of 8 inches that has been divided into 6 pieces, or a pizza with a radius of 10 inches that has been divided into 10 pieces. Oh, this is such a good problem. Let's start with the 8-inch pizza, okay? So we have an 8-inch radius. We have A equals pi r to the second. Okay, we're going to make the substitution that 8, it goes in for r. We're also going to substitute 3.14 in for pi. And so remember, 8 to the second means to write that 8 2 times and multiply. So this is where you're going to want to use your calculator. And we get 200.96. And that's square inches. Now, if we divide that into 6 pieces or 6 slices, then we're going to divide this by 6. And I'll get that each slice is around 33.5 square inches. Now let's check the other piece of pizza. So this one will do the 10-inch radius. So we've got A equals pi r to the second. Let's make the substitution. Again, pi, we're going to put in 3.14. And then we'll have 10 to the second. So that's what we'll get when we substitute in 10 for r. Now remember again that 10 to the second means to write the 10 twice and multiply. So we can multiply all of these together, 3.14 times 10, which gives us 314 square inches, 314. But remember, we are dividing this into 10 slices. So we're going to take that and divide by 10, we'll get 31.4 square inches for each slice. So which pizza actually gives us the bigger slice? That is the 8-inch radius pizza. Oh, that's some good calculations, right? Just using that formula to make it substitution. But then we had to have the added step of dividing at the end to find out each slice. That was a good one. Okay, let's look at one from accounting. Okay, so this formula, the cash ratio equals cash divided by current liabilities. This includes the cash you have on hand. I think that's important. That's not tied up. The cash ratio includes a company's current liabilities, which are debts that the company owes. Now, we can use this formula for a couple of reasons. First, it tells you how much cash your company has to spend, but it also gives you an idea of how easily a company can pay off their debts. Now, let's use the formula. So we'll use this formula. Let's say the company has $2,500 in cash. We'll make that substitution. And $15,000 in liabilities. What is the cash ratio? So we'll make those substitutions. We've got that the cash ratio, whoops, not ration, cash ratio is the cash, that's 25,000, divided by the liabilities, that's 15,000. And again, we could type this in our calculator, 25,000 divided by 15,000. And I get 1 point, and I'll go ahead and round 67. So my cash ratio is 1.67. Obviously, anything above 1 would indicate that we have more cash than we do liabilities or things that we owe. But you can see again, our formulas are all about making that substitution and then calculating for the missing value that we don't know. All right, let's do current ratio. So the last one was cash ratio. This one is current ratio. Now the current ratio are the current assets divided by the current liabilities. So it's important to note that assets are owned by a company. They can easily be converted to cash within 1 year, while liabilities refer to debts due within 1 year. Now, I know it might not seem intuitive, but the goal is to have more assets than you have liabilities. The goal is to own more than you owe, which means this ratio should be more than 1. And this equation is helpful because it informs investors and potential shareholders. How likely is this company to pay off its debts? Kind of gives a bigger picture as to how the company is doing financially. So let's use this formula. Let's say that a company has a total of 75,000 in assets and has 30,000 in liabilities. We're going to use this formula to get our current ratio. So our current ratio is our current assets. That's our 75,000. Simply replacing that current asset with the amount we were given. And then we're going to divide by the current liabilities, which you can see is 30,000 here. This is just like we were doing last week. So we're going to go to our calculator, we're going to divide, and we get 2.5. Now, remember, anything over 1 indicates that we have more assets than we do liabilities. Our business is in a good financial position.
let's look at another formula. Now this one is a profit margin. So that is our net income divided by our sales. This generally is returned in a decimal value, but we can easily turn it to a percentage by multiplying by 100. Now the profit margin has two components. The first component is the net income. That refers to the amount of money a company has retained after paying its expenses. And then it has also sales, which are generated from different business activities. And I think it's important to know that this equation tells you a couple of things. Number one, it tells you if your business is earning a profit. Are we in the black, as businesses would say? And secondly, it tells you how your profit compares to your revenue. It means how much of the money do you actually get to keep after you've paid all your expenses? Obviously, companies want to keep more of their profit, and that would indicate that they are doing, their health as a company is better. So let's use this equation. So in the month of December, a company has a net income of $13,000 and recorded its sales at $5,000. What is the company's profit margin? So we will calculate the profit margin by doing the net income, that's the $13,000, divided by the sales, which is the $5,000. And again, we can divide that in our calculator. And I got 2.6. Remember, generally the profit margin is returned as a decimal. And then if you want to convert it to a percentage, you could always take that and multiply by 100. And you would see we get 260%. What does that mean? It means we're keeping a lot of the profit that we are earning. All right, now our next one, remember, 3 of our learning objectives for week 3 are review. So what we just did was go through a series of formulas to help you review, remember what we did in previous weeks. And we did this because our assessment for this week has some of those formulas on there that asks us to substitute in for one variable so that we can find the value for another variable. Now, our next learning objective is very similar in that we learned this in a previous week, right? We learned PEMDAS. We practiced it in a great discussion where you created a problem and then in reply to one of your other classmates, you solved their problem. So we're going to do some review again this week on PEMDAS. Now, if you'll remember, we talked about parentheses, any type of grouping symbol really, could be a bracket, could be a brace. We talked about exponents. That meant, remember, it meant not to do 8 times 2, but instead to write the 8 twice and multiply. We talked about multiplying or dividing in order from left to right. And then we talked about addition or subtraction. Remember, doing those in order from left to right. But let's look at some examples. All right, so let's start with our checklist, PEMDAS. We'll begin with parentheses. So we see that inside the parentheses, we can add those together. So 3 plus 2 is 5. I'm going to check that off my list. Next, we do exponents. 5 to the second, that means to write the 5 2 times and multiply. So 5 times 5 gives me 25. So my exponent step is done. I don't have any multiply or divide, so I skip that step and I can subtract, giving me 18 as my final answer here. Remember, use your PEMDAS like a checklist. It's going to help you feel like you didn't miss anything, right? And also so you'll know that next right thing to do. All right, let's These are going to get a little bit more complicated each step of the way. We baby step into more difficult problems. So let's begin with the parentheses. Now, in the parentheses, we have several operations going on. So we still have to follow the order of operations. We'll do this guy first. So 4 to the second, remember, that doesn't mean 4 times 2. That means write the 4 twice and multiply. So we're still doing that 4 to the second. Oh, sorry. Yep, 4 to the second, which we converted to 4 times 4. That is 16. And now I see lots of addition inside of that parentheses. So I'm going to go ahead and do that addition. 16 plus 3 is 19. And 19 plus 2 is 21. All right, I'm done with my parentheses step. Next, I do the exponent step. And in the exponent step, I'm going to do 7 to the second. Remember, that doesn't mean 7 times 2. That means to write the 7 twice and multiply. So, oops, excuse me, 7 times 7 gives me 49. Now there's 3 written beside this parentheses. I want you to think of that to mean multiplication. So I'm going to rewrite this as 49 plus 3 times 21. And since we finished our exponent step, next we know we are supposed to multiply or divide. So I'm going to multiply here. That will give me 49 plus 63. And that finishes my multiply or divide step. And now I can add or subtract, and that gives me 112 as my final answer there. Ooh, that was a good one. A good problem where we use all of the steps in the order of operation. I think I have one more. So this will be a good one to just make sure we're understanding each and every step along the way. So let's start with the parentheses. Okay, so I've got 4 times 8. 4 times 8 is 112. So that finishes my parentheses. Let's do exponents next. So I've got this 10 to the second. Remember, that doesn't mean 10 times 2. That means 10 times 10. So that is 100. And so that takes care of our exponent step. Next, we have division. And so 112 divided by 2 gives me 56. And then this last step, it gets people, okay? Remember, our last step is add or divide, whichever comes first, left to right. So when you start over here at the beginning of the problem, the first thing you come to is that subtract. So you have to do that first. So 100 minus 56 gives you 44, and then you can add the 6 to give us 50, okay? So a lot of people in the week 1 assignment, that addition and subtraction got them. All right, I'm going to skip over these last 2 examples because I want to make sure we have time to get to all of these pieces, parts. If I have time, I'll come back to those too. There is an assessment issue here. And you may want to screenshot this one. If you take a look at this problem on the assessment, you are going to see that the answer should be 203. But 203 is not listed as an answer choice. Instead, 86 is listed as an answer choice, and I want to make sure you get that, okay? So it is wrong, but I want to give that out to you so you can fix it when you submit your assessment for this week. So you may want to screenshot that. If you're watching the recording, you may want to pause and make sure you write that down for the assessment this week, that in fact is a wrong answer, but we want you to be able to still answer it correctly. The answer that is flagged as the correct answer is 86. All right, let's talk about the coordinate system. Now, the coordinate system you may or may not have seen before. We have what we call axes, and we have a center point here. That is 0, 0. So when we look at a point, 3, 2, the first value tells us how far to go, left or right. So that needs to go from here. We want to go right 3. 1, 2, 3. And then the second value tells us to go up or down. Because it's positive, we go up. 1, 2. So this point right here is 3, 2. Let's do another one, just so you feel a little comfortable. Remember, I'm going to start in the middle first. And now I'm going -1. Remember, that tells me go left or right, but because it's negative, I'm going to go right. So I'm going to go, I'm sorry, because it's negative, I'm going left. So here's -1. And then this value tells me to go up or down. Because it's negative, I go down. So I was here. So I go down 1, 2. This is -1, -2. Okay. My last one is 0, 3. So again, we start at the origin or the middle. And this tells me, hey, don't go anywhere left or right. Okay, I'll stay there. But then go up, because it's positive, 3. So 1, 2, 3. This would be 0, 3. So remember that first coordinate tells you to go left or right. Positives go right, negatives go left. The second coordinate, the second value, tells you to go up or down. Positives go up, negatives go down. Practice with those. You can definitely get them in the right locations by doing that. So in addition to that, there are parts of a graph that we talk about. So the horizontal axis we call the x-axis. And the vertical axis we call the y-axis. And then of course that origin I was talking about is 0, 0. Now, when we use graphs like this in business, we want to label them. They should be named, such as months of the year, such as profit, and things like that. Now, the origin is important because it's generally considered to be the center point of a graph. So you can see this graph that we've given here is kind of, we're only showing you the right side of it, right? Because that origin should be what's considered the center point of a graph. Now, there are other parts of the graph as well. As the x-axis and the y-axis intersect, then the graphic can be divided into 4, what we call quadrants. Quad meaning 4. But I want you to see the numbering. We number them with Roman numerals, 1, then 2, 3, then 4. So this is in a counterclockwise order. But that is how, excuse me. I apologize, I needed to cough and didn't want to do that in my microphone. So you can see how the graph is then divided into 4 sections, what we can call quadrants. So now I am going to be doing some examples. Now, these are examples of questions that are like those that are on one of those that are on the live lecture quiz. Don't have the exact question on here, but these are examples. I just want you to know this is an example of one that's on the live lecture quiz. So let's look at one -6. I'm sorry, 3, -6. So we'll start from the center. That means for us to go 3 to the right. Okay, now I understand 3 would be way over here, and that's okay. And then we would go down 6, okay? It would put us in quadrant 4. Okay, let's do -8, -2, okay? Think about the directions you're gonna go. -8 is gonna make us go left over here, okay? -2 is gonna mean go down. So we're gonna be down in here. That puts us in quadrant 3. Okay, let's do 0, 9. Okay, so 0 tells us, hey, don't go anywhere, left or right. And then the 9 tells us to go up 9. Now that one doesn't land us in a quadrant, it lands us on the y-axis. So don't get in a quadrant on that one, we're on a y-axis. Let's look at -12, 100. Okay, so -12 says, hey, go to the left. And 100 says, hey, go up. And that puts us in quadrant 2. And then finally, let's do -2, 0. So -2, 0. So start at the origin, go -2, that puts us here, and don't go up or down. So that doesn't put us in a quadrant anymore. That puts us on the x-axis. So look at your directions. Which direction are the values telling you to go? And then I want you to denote those as quadrants. All right, let's talk about slopes. Now the slope is the steepness or flatness of a line. So positive slopes lean to the right. And they tell you that the values are increasing. Negative slopes lean to the left. And they tell you that the values are decreasing. So there's a couple of ways to find the slope. The first one is the counting method. If you started here and you wanted to count with this point, you would count up 3. And you would count over 4. And when you use the counting method, you do the rise over the run. So you went up 3 and you ran to the right 4. So your slope would be 3/4. You can also use the formula, and I'll show that one. This point is 1, 2, and this point is 5, 5. So what you do is you subtract the y's, the second coordinates, and you subtract the first coordinates, the x coordinates, and you also get 3/4. You could do it either method, either the counting method, which means you need to be looking at the graph so you can count the up and the over, or the down and over, or you can use the formula. So let's try one of these. All right, we're going to count our rise, which is 2, and we'll count our run, which is 1. So remember, when we do slope, it's rise over run, which would be 2 over 1. That gives me 2. Now let's do this other one here, because this is going to be interesting, because we actually don't rise, we fall, right? That just means we put a negative on our rise. Okay, so our rise here, okay, that we actually fall 4, so we'll call that -4, and we run 4, and running to the right, so we get -4 over 4, or -1. for my slope. So lots of good, I like the counting method. I don't know about you, it's just my favorite. That's what I prefer to use if I'm going to be counting for my slopes, okay? So this graph shows us a company's monthly profits. So what does the slope tell us? The slope tells us how much profit per month. Profit per month is what the slope tells us. I want you to think of the slope as a rate, right? And friends, that wraps up everything we have for week 3. Now, let me go back to our to-do list because I want you to make sure we highlight all of those good things. Here it was. Remember, you've got 2 discussions. You've got, in each of those discussions, you've got an initial pose. You want to have a good citation and a reference. Then you also have an assignment. And on that assignment, you have 5 questions. Be looking for in the next day or so. I'll be sending out the playlist for that. Then you have the assessment. You want to take more than once, definitely, to earn the highest grade possible. Then you have your live lecture quiz. That's 4 questions. Remember, we covered everything you need in this session for that. And then you have your daily checkpoints. 4 of them are required, 3 are extra credit. Make sure to set a reminder on your phone to do those. So thanks so much, my friends, for coming today and for looking at some examples. Remember, week 3, we've got this, right? It's only 4 learning objectives. 3 of them we have covered before in previous weeks. So let's view it like that, and let's have a great week 3. I'm looking forward to it. I want to hopefully we are able to look at and just kind of set us up for that last week of our course. So if I can help in any way, I would love the opportunity to do that. Bye, everyone.